For as far back as I can remember, if anyone just mentioned the word Cedar Point, I think to myself, greatest amusement park in the world. Had never been, but I knew it. When I'd meet someone from Ohio, it was the same question every time. Have you ever been to Cedar Point? Of course, they'd always say yes. Okay, then tell me how a 300-foot coaster beats out the 400-foot every year as the best coaster in the world. Well, Dragster's really fast, but it's over so quick. Millennium Force is a complete package, but you really need to check out Raptor too. It's also really good. Okay, well, what's Magnum XL like? I hear that was one of the first ever to top the 200-foot mark. You just need to plan a trip. The park's amazing, I'm telling you. You see, this is how it's been for years. If you went, it was your favorite park. If you hadn't, it was always on your bucket list. Fast forward to 2021 and the park's changing slowly into something much different. You see, while Cedar Point's still packed with some of the best machines in the business, it's shifting from an amusement park to something bigger, a destination park. You've always had people that make a day trip out of this place. And to be honest, if I lived close enough, I'd also do that 10 to 20 times a year myself. But for many, it's becoming a 3 to 5 day vacation package. Now don't get me wrong, when I say destination park, I wouldn't quite put it on the level of a Disney trip, because they're still booking piles of 7 to 10 day packages. But it's also far from a typical park visit like to Carowinds or King's Dominion, for example. While both are great parks with tons to do, those are most always a day visit for guests. I'd say it's most comparable to a place like Universal. People want and need 3 to 5 days to get a good feel for the park. And Cedar Point's no different. People no longer want to come in, ride the biggest and baddest ones, and hit the road. And there are 3 main reasons for this. 1, the park's just so massive and stacked with so many attractions. It's nearly impossible to experience everything in a single day. 2, they've done a great job with adding so many non-ride experiences both in and out of the park. I mean, you got the Cedar Point Beach, the Jet Express on Lake Erie, parasailing, Segway tours, jet ski rentals, Snake River Expedition, shores, the boardwalk, special events, summer nights, Halloween weekends. The list just goes on and on. And 3, the on-site hotel reservations at Lighthouse Point and Breakers are so wonderful. Book a stay at either and you'll find it really difficult to leave. But the park just don't take the same risk it did years ago. You see, if we take a look at a 15-year span from 1989 until 2003, the park added the world's first coaster over 200 foot in Magnum XL, the world's first coaster over 300 foot in Millennium Force, and the world's first coaster over 400 foot in Top Thrill Dragster. And if we're looking at risk on a 0 to 10 scale, I'd give all 3 a 10. Now let's rewind to the last 15 years for comparison. 2013, a B&M Wing Coaster, Gatekeeper. 2016, B&M Dive, Val Raven. 2018, the RMC Masterpiece, Still Vengeance. The 2013 Wing Coaster is both a crowd pleaser and a capacity machine. And the same can be said for Val Raven, the world's tallest dive machine. And while they did break a few records, I'm sure most will agree that they were basically a 0 out of 10 risk, which leaves us with Still Vengeance. It's really the only major risk Cedar Point's taken in nearly 2 decades. And you know, I'm not even sure I would consider it a risk anymore. It was more of a no-brainer. Sure, it broke 10 world records and pushed hybrid coasters to limits never seen before. It's a masterpiece. And while it did deliver the same type of hype that we saw from Magnum, Millie, and Dragster, I like to think of this one as more of the perfect storm. Cedar Point wanted a new coaster, but they were landlocked and had nowhere to build without destruction. And they had one of the most massive wooden structures in existence that, let's just face it, wasn't very popular. B&M, Intamin, and Arrow already made up 14 machines at this park. And what they lacked was a machine from Rocky Mountain Construction. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, and yes, a risk, but one they just couldn't pass up. So what do I mean by Cedar Point will never be Cedar Point again? While this is all pure speculation on my part, I feel the future of Cedar Point will look much different from the past. I just don't see them taking the same huge risk that they did decades ago. Instead, I think they'll continue their efforts of recent years into turning Cedar Point to that true destination park. with continued focus on new park experiences and top-notch hotel accommodations. Even new food and dining options to separate Cedar Point from the competition. And I also think they'll continue to preserve the history of Cedar Point to the fullest. But what about the coasters? Look, we all know this is a roller coaster capital of the world, and that ain't changing anytime soon. Cedar Fair is committed as much now as they ever have been to keeping Cedar Point the best amusement park in the world. I just don't think the main focus is breaking height and speed records anymore. They'll continue to build the best coasters in the business, but I think your focus will be more on the entire experience. Well-planned and unmatched layouts that deliver. Good theming, but not too much, more like what we saw with Copperhead Strike. Machines that offer great reliability and capacity. And don't forget lighting packages, because this is Cedar Point. Trust me, I'd love to see a 500-foot record breaker at this park more than anyone. But I think every coaster will be a well-thought-out machine that fills a much-needed hole in the lineup. And as much as I hate to admit it, I think that's exactly what Cedar Point needs. But hey, if Cedar Point taught us anything over the years, it's to never bet against them.